Megan?
And it seems to go tubing in the river.
Yes, so they wanted to know if you had a friend come over, should you tell them to go tubing in this river? Is that a really bad idea? And how did they go about investigating that question?
Really?
Based on the information that they've already been exposed to in class, they create their own hypotheses and experiments.
Yeah. Yep, so they came up with what they wanted to test. I know there's one group that was testing the nitrate in the water, one group was testing, I believe, the pH. Another group looked at what organisms were in the water, and based on the prior information they had and what they collected, they could look at how healthy the water was. And then, so the next step was to create, and what did they create in this activity? Kind of mentioned right at the end almost. Kelsey?
A poster.
Yep, so every group made a poster of their findings, and one group was able to say there are a lot of organisms in this pond, so if all these things can live in here, the water must be a bit healthy, even though it looks really murky, the water is okay. And so after they created and they presented their posters, then they had a discussion, and what did they pretty much discuss? They just discussed their findings. So they presented their posters, and each group had, all the groups had just researched something different, so they all didn't test the pH. So one group would say, hey, the pH of this water is good, and the other group said, there's all these organisms in here, so that's good. And then another group said, whatever the findings were on the nitrate, they're like, there isn't too much nitrate, it's good. And so from that discussion, they were able to reflect and say, yes, the water is healthy, we could tell them to go tubing. Another example of a teaching method based on constructivism is cooperative learning, where students work together to achieve a shared goal. So can anyone think of a basic example of cooperative learning?
How about you try to talk to your tables? Talk about what you kind of think cooperative learning would be for content.
So it sounds like the discussion is kind of dying down. What did you guys come up with? Megan?
We just said kind of like anything like a group project.
Yeah.
Or
That is exactly what I was looking for. Pretty much any group project you do, you're cooperative learning, you're working together to achieve this goal. So I mean, even in this class, like this presentation was a group project. So the three of us worked together. And for any group project to work out, you need to have these 5 necessary elements, which would be positive interdependence. So we have to work together. And so, I mean, if I made my own presentation and Samantha made her own presentation and Madeline made her own presentation, and we all showed up like, yep, I'm ready to go, and we'd go, it'd be kind of a mess. We wouldn't really get anywhere. And then, so we all worked together to create one presentation for you guys. And then we had individual and group accountability where everyone had to contribute. And so Samantha started the presentation. I added some details to the presentation. Madeline kind of was the leadership role on our lesson plan, and like together we kind of all came in and threw in our ideas for everything too. So So each one of us contributed to the success of the group. And then we need interpersonal skills, trust communication, decision-making, leadership, and conflict resolution. So if you can't work well together, you're not going to get anywhere. So if we just sat there fighting in the library all day, we wouldn't have been able to come up with this. But we work well together, and so. And then face-to-face interaction, we couldn't all sit in our dorms and do this on our own. I mean, we probably could have gotten somewhere, but it wouldn't have been nearly as good. So we met in the library, and we discussed our section, we discussed where we wanted to go with the project, and it just makes the project flow a lot more smoothly. And then group processing, after this, we'll reflect on, while we were doing it, we would reflect on how the group is functioning. So if something's not going well, we would have to have a discussion on it. And then after the fact, you can reflect on how it went and how you can improve in the future. And I know most people probably don't like group projects. Whenever I hear I have to do a group project, I'm like, oh no, another group project. But they're actually very good. It's proven that when students work together to complete these tasks, they have higher level reasoning, creative thinking, increased self-esteem, greater intrinsic motivation, and improved relationships. So by working together, and you get everyone's perspectives, and you get a lot of experience, and students just grow a lot more in completing a group project than they would if they had done it alone. And then finally, we just have methods of fostering comprehension. And so that would be, one would be reciprocal teaching, where a method, there's 4 techniques. You summarize, question, clarify, and predict. And the teacher provides the scaffolding, like at the beginning of the year, you have to like guide them through it very closely, but as the year goes on, you could slowly reduce like your role as a teacher in the methods, and then students would be able to do it on their own eventually. And then instructional conversations are where a method of encouraging interaction with and comprehension of stories. And so they learn through a story or an anecdote or something like that. And finally, there's reciprocal questioning, which is a method that encourages social negotiation of conflicting perspectives by having students generate questions based on material and take turns answering questions. So if you have material to cover, the students or the teacher, at first, the teacher would probably come up with questions for the student to answer. And then as the class goes on, you kind of remove the scaffolding, and eventually the students can come up with questions and answer the questions also. And so some questions that would be examples of reciprocal questioning would be to have someone describe something in their own words, or explain why or how something occurs, what would happen if something changed or if something occurred, and if someone agrees or disagrees with something and why. That's summary.
So now if you guys could just turn to your groups and talk about these questions a little bit. We're going to talk about them after you guys have had some time to come up with ideas. And we'll just recap pretty much what we did in the whole presentation. So you can talk now.
Group construction. Finishing that, or like more where to go, and then disadvantages like
But something like a family, just like it takes.
yeah. More like hands-on kind of approach where the students can make their case.
Teachers create structured learning environment and learn students to
I don't like it. Like real world applications, like she kind of like talking about like having shop class. Person like wants to use like mechanical or she my brain's not that much. I'm like slowly easing into it.
Doesn't even feel like I went away.
It went so fast.
So you come back more tired than when you left? So was it really a break?
I don't know. Like, we were in California, so it was like a 2-hour difference, so we might just
Sure feels that way.
Yeah, it was bad. I don't know.
When did you get back, Sunday?
Sunday morning, so we had to play at night.
Alright, so we're just gonna talk about each of these questions. You guys ready? So for the first question, define learning objectives and explain why it's important for a lesson to have clear learning objectives. Does somebody want to tell me what that group talked about? Or else we're just gonna go table to table. Okay, I guess we're going table to table. Yeah, or unless somebody wants to talk about it.
You had a volunteer back
Yeah.
there.
You want to talk about it?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
I just said, learning objectives, like, the goals for the lesson, like what the students should get out of it at the end of the lesson. It's important to have clear learning objectives because, it gives you and your students like a sense of direction and where you're going.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome. So yeah, just describes what they should be able to do by the end of the lesson, and it gives them kind of like a path to where they're going with their lesson. So number 2, describe the goals of mastery learning and discuss the advantages and disadvantages. What do you guys have? Yeah.
I guess one of the advantages is it communicates to students the value of just being knowledgeable on the subject.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Disadvantage is if you can't actually perform the task. Yeah, you know about it, but you can't do it.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know, we talk about sports, like, yeah, we know everything about like golf and basketball, like the basic concepts, but can we go out there and perform it at a mastery level?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to throw in the academic portion there. When I think of mastery learning, that